Praise the Lord. This is Dr. C. Dexter Wise III with another edition of the video version of Every Day with Dr. Wise, where you get a mighty message in about 3 minutes or less. We are in a series called Trick or Trick, studying the tricks of the devil based on Genesis chapter 3. And we have been talking about these tricks for several days and several weeks, and we've got one more here today. And the trick that we're talking about today is that he feeds your doubts. He feeds your doubts. There's no question in my mind, there's no doubt in my mind that Eve had her doubts about the command of God. She knew what God said. She knew what Adam said God said. And she knew that she was not supposed to eat of the fruit of the tree. But when the devil came to her, he raised doubts in her mind. And what made him so effective is he raised doubts about the various things that she was thinking. It's very interesting that when God talks to us, he feeds our faith. But when the devil talks to us, he feeds our doubts. When God talks to us, he feeds our faith. When the devil talks to us, he feeds our doubts. And when he does that, notice how he did this with Eve. The first thing he did is he strikes up a conversation. He starts talking to her. Eve was by the tree, but she didn't start it. She didn't start the conversation. The conversation was started by the serpent. And let me tell you one thing. Whenever the devil is near, whenever he starts a conversation, cut that off at the beginning. Amen. Cut it off at the don't even give place to the devil, because as soon as you start a conversation with the devil, you're already in trouble. So the first thing he did was he struck up a conversation. The second thing he did was he started the conversation with a question. The question in Genesis chapter 3 verse 1 is, has God said that you should not eat of this tree? Well, he knew what God said. She knew what God said, but he asked a question. He didn't tell her anything. He just asked the question. And he knew that the question she asked was the same, was the same question she was asking. And so what happened was, by him asking that question, he not only confirmed her right to ask the question, but he legitimated the question itself. And sometimes when the devil asks us the question, he feeds our doubts by helping us to know that we're not the only ones that think like this. There are other people that think this way, and we're not crazy to doubt the things that God says. And so what he does is he starts a conversation. Then he strikes up a conversation. He starts with a question, and then he sneaks in a suggestion. He sneaks in a suggestion. He's very tricky. He's very tricky. He doesn't tell you what to do. He just gives you a suggestion. Okay, well, are you sure you're going to die? That's all he says. Are you sure you're going to die? You're not really going to die. And he sneaks in that suggestion. And based on that suggestion alone, Eve ate the fruit and she gave it to her husband. Eve ate the fruit and gave it to her husband. He struck up a conversation. He started with a question. He snuck in a suggestion. And the next thing you know, not only did they fall, but we fell. The same thing will happen to you and to me if we fall for that trick. Don't you dare fall for that trick. Trust God.